Welcome back, folks, to Big Sky Big Takes here on the Fans Nation Network. I'm your host, Colby Peterson. With me tonight, again, as always, Montana Parlay, fresh off of hoops out in Chicago. How did it turn out for you at the game, Montana Parlay?
It's always nice to go, but the Bulls suck. That's all there is to it. They're terrible. They lost to the Jazz.
Had a bad loss to the Jazz, guys. The Jazz were winless until tonight, but we're not here to talk about the NBA. So, like you said, got to go to United Center. It's always a good time to go to the game. Also with us tonight, returning, Patrick Frakes. Patty, feeling better after being sick a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, I'm over my coach bestitis, as I so nicely put it in the comments of that video or that live stream, and we're back.
That's good. All right. Well, before we dive into it, want to encourage everybody to go check out the Fans Nation Network. Lots of really good content on this YouTube channel and a number of other places. You can follow them on Twitter at FCS Fans Nation. Lots of good stuff. You can also join the Facebook group. There's a lot going on in there, so make sure to check them out. There's a lot of other podcasts on the network that talk about the FCS, and FCS content is fun, so go check them out. We're going to start out this week with another shout-out to Parlay's National Championship Game ticket giveaway. Parlay, what's the update that you have for us on this one?
Someone reached out to me asking how late they can submit an email. Basically, right up until the semifinals is fine. Don't push it. The earlier, the better, And we got some contenders, so that's all there is to it. And again, I will release the official rules for the para tickets before the Cat Grizz show, because right now we're accepting emails for the single ticket. So, that's a $200 value. So get those emails in, montanaparlay@gmail.com. That's it.
All right. Like I said, Cat Grizz game coming up here in a couple of weeks, so we'll have more for you on that one. But, guys, email Parlay. We're talking about free national championship game tickets. Like, what's not to love? So next up, we have our favorite segment, Parlay Ready to Preach. Parlay, what do you got for us this week?
Well, I sold my segment to the Montana Senate race. Someone paid me $500,000 to give this time to another ad, since I hear people in Montana haven't heard enough ad. No, I'm just kidding. We don't want to talk about that tonight. So, this is a last-minute change. I'm actually going to talk about seat sizes. I went to the United Center today. Had good seats. I was in the 100s. Could hardly fit. I'm not a small guy. I'm not a huge guy. I'm 6'1", 220-ish. Put on a few pounds in the last couple of weeks. I'm getting ready for the eating season, all right? But it is not comfortable. Like, my back's aching right now because I'm sitting like this. My feet have nowhere to go. It's worse than coach on an airline, which I avoid like the plague. I always try to upgrade as much as possible, even when I couldn't afford it. It's just, I don't know how actual large people travel. I don't know how actual large people enjoy a game these days, because I was at a White Sox Cubs game at Guarantee Rate Field, a.k.a. Sox Park, Old Comiskey, and I had a sweet ticket, and I was like in a sardine can. I mean, it's terrible out there. They're squeezing people in. Big people like sports, and big people can't enjoy going to stadiums. Something's got to give. I don't know if they're going to start handing out Ozempic to season ticket holders or what. I might need some. That's another story. But yeah, come on, people. Let's expand the seat sizes. Like, even if I was a svelte, 12% body fat, like the good old days, I still wouldn't fit in those seats because I'm over 6 foot tall and I've got wide shoulders. Like, it's just miserable to try to sit and watch a game. And yeah, some of these places you can walk around and whatnot, but yeah, I don't want to go to a game and be like this the whole time. It's not fun for anyone. All right, that's enough of that. Yeah, little last minute preach session. Nothing's going to change on that. People are going to keep getting bigger, and airlines and stadiums are going to squeeze more people into tighter spaces to make more money. It's as simple as that.
All right. There you have it, folks. This week's Parlay Preaches. All right, man. Check out the comments here. Not much going on yet, so if you guys have something you want to shout out, feel free to hop in the comments and do so.
Might be past everyone's bedtime. You know, we're rocking 10:30 Central, but it's like it's 11:30 for our poor little bodies after daylight savings time. So we might have people sound asleep by now. Mahomes just won it in overtime. You know, hey, who knows what could happen? It's way past the time where my brain can tell my mouth what to say, and even when it can, it doesn't do a good job.
Well, let's dive into it, man. Guess the lines from last week ended up coming in through as a tie, 5-5. Parlay correctly calling the Montana State game, NAU, PSU SAC, South Dakota State, and Mercer closest on those. So good call. Some of those games are really good. That ETSU Mercer game was really good. The NAU Weber State game was not so good. Biased, of course.
Yeah. You know, looking back, that strategy where when we are furthest off of the actual Vegas lines and you bet that difference, paid off nicely because both of us thought that NAU should be favored by at least 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, some way, Weber was favored. NAU is at least as good of a team, if not better, in my opinion. And I'm not talking about what happened on Saturday. I'm talking throughout the season. NAU is just as good as Weber, at least. And walk-up Skydome, to me, is worth 5 or 6 points. So for Weber to be favored made no sense. I bet accordingly. I told my followers to bet accordingly. The other one was the gosh dang it. It was the SAC game. We thought that SAC should be a slight favorite. They ended up being a 13.5-point favorite, and Portland State won outright by 2 touchdowns. So that was another one I jumped on. I didn't give out at Parlay's picks, but I bet it. I think I went 6-0 on Saturday, and my picks were 3-0. So let's keep the ball rolling. See, Patty usually beats me on this. I threw in some picks, and I'm going to keep them. Maybe it's because you guys see my picks and you can adjust accordingly. Maybe that's why I lose every week on the GTL. I don't know.
All right, well, let's take a look at this week. So Big Sky has got a full slate of action. Everybody is done with their bye weeks now. So first up, we'll have Eastern Washington at Northern Colorado in Greeley. Parlay, what are you thinking on this one?
This is tough. I got Eastern -8.5. It'll probably be a little higher than that, but you know they've played some good teams close. They usually blow out the real bad teams. So 8.5.
All right, Patty, how are you feeling? This is your alma mater here, man. What are you thinking?
Right. It is kind of hard to know what to do with Eastern just because, like, you never know if they're gonna kind of use an eye test or they're gonna look at 2 and 7. But I think I'm taking Eastern -11.5. You know, I think it'd be right around a 14-point spread. It's in Northern Colorado, the standard 3-point-ish deduction-ish, something like that. I just think Eastern has played they've played 4 top 10 teams, and the most that they lost by was 14. I think that. Hopefully that has some weight in Vegas's eyes this week.
And I think if the NAU Weber game is any indicator, like Parlay said, Weber favored. If you looked at the resume, probably should not have been, but they were. And I think that maybe Vegas relies on past performance maybe a little bit too much. And so if that's the case and that's the way they think, Eastern favored for sure. Maybe more than they should be. Next up, we've got Sac at Montana State in Bozeman. Parlay, your alma mater. What are you thinking on this one?
Man, I mean,
This is the Hot Take
Sack has
Nate
been
Bowl.
overrated. Yeah, his two favorite teams. Sack's been overrated, but uh, man, I mean, Montana State might have a slight look ahead to the Davis game, but
Which
they're
would
at
be
home
big.
and they're cruising at home. I got 19 and a half. I couldn't go as high as 20, but 19 and a half.
Okay. Patty, how do you feel about this one? Sac losing outright to Portland State last week at home, by the way.
Right.
And so, barely surviving a Weber State in overtime. You saw what happened to Weber State last week. Sac's just not that good. How will Vegas see them?
Right. I don't think Sac is that good either, but I'm right around the same number as Parlay. I got Montana State minus 17 and a half. I almost feel like the line probably should be bigger, but I think it will be right around that 17 and a half point mark. We did see, Montana State play kind of a close game with Eastern last week. You wonder if that Eastern covered the spread on Montana State, hey, great teams cover, but um, you got to wonder if it'll affect the line just a little bit to the point where it's down a little bit from where we think it probably should be.
Okay. Next up, for the Train Bell Trophy, Idaho State taking the trip down to Ogden to face Weber State. Idaho State has not won in Ogden since 1984. That streak is very much in jeopardy this weekend, folks. Parlay, what do you have?
Is there a train line between Ogden and Pocatello?
There was.
Yeah,
And people regularly
good old
rode the
days.
train between the two, yeah.
Yeah. What could be still? Anyway, I got Weber. It's going to be higher than it should be, in my opinion. I hope it's above 7, so I can bet on Idaho State. I've got 7.5.
Yeah, like we talked about, Weber regularly overestimated. That happened last season. That's happened a lot this season. Patty, what do you think?
Right. So, I'm overthinking what I've put down. I put down Weber minus 2.5 because I think Idaho State has looked like the better team thus far in the season. But
They can slang it.
right. But you mentioned Weber has been a little overvalued this year in Vegas, and so now I'm kind of rethinking my thing. But I'm going to stick with it. Weber minus 2.5.
Okay. Next up, Idaho takes the trip over to see Portland State off of their recent win against Sac State. Idaho coming off of a bye. Parlay, how do you see this one?
Portland hasn't been getting enough credit, but Idaho coming off a bye. I don't know how many guys are getting back off the injury. They were decimated, and haven't been covering spreads too well. So I actually have Idaho at 5.5, but it's probably going to be higher. But I don't think it should be higher than 6 or 7, in my opinion.
Okay. Patty, what about you?
Right. So I have this Idaho minus 12.5, and the main reason is Jack Lane is back for Idaho, and he looked pretty damn good versus Eastern a couple weeks ago. That being said, everyone looks good against Eastern offensively, but I think that holds a little bit of weight, and Portland State's defense has been awful this year. I think that if there's a week like last week where Idaho gets the offense rolling after struggling so much, it is this week. So I got Idaho minus 12.5.
Okay. Double digits for the Vandals on the road. Next up, Northern Arizona on the road to SLO to face Cal Poly. Parlay, how you feel about this one?
I got NAU looks like a team that could lose the first round playoff game. I got minus 6, but it probably crosses that 7 threshold. Cal Poly looked pretty bad against Montana last week.
Yeah. Yeah, NAU's strength is that they have a pretty solid defense, especially a great secondary. Their offense is pretty terrible, though. Patty, what do you have for this one?
Right. This is another one that I wrote it down and now I'm starting to overthink it. I got NAU minus 9.5. I think Cal Poly is just not respected because, I mean, they just
Right.
haven't been good. So right away, like right around 10 was where I was thinking. And now I'm thinking, damn, it is in Cal Poly. That probably lowers it right around to that 7-ish point range. But I'm going to stick with the 9.5. Yeah, NAU 9.5.
Okay. Yeah, Paulie's been bad for a long time, so probably in the eyes of Vegas, they're not giving them much credit. So wouldn't be surprised to see NAU higher up than maybe they would normally, just because of who Paulie has been for a long time. Next, we have UC Davis taking the trip to Missoula to face the Grizz. Parlay, how do you have this one?
This is going to be a heck of a game. It's damn late, 9:15 Central Time. I was at that ESPN2 game, MSU Idaho. It's tough when it doesn't get over till midnight local time.
It's gonna be cold.
Plus, our bodies are still used to the previous time change, so it's going to feel even later. So I don't know. I mean, it could be a wonky game. Hawk hates night games, and this is as late as it can possibly get. I could see an over. Like, remember that sack game full of controversy against Montana that went to overtime
On national TV, right?
Yeah, I feel like, and then Montana had some weird games against Eastern in the regular season late at night. This is going to be one of those games. It just is. It's going to come down to a last drive. It could come down to overtime. Montana has to. I know Davis is ranked quite a bit. They're sitting at 4 or 5 in most polls, I believe, maybe 6 in a few. And Montana's in the 10, the 8 to 12 range.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think the Grizz have to be favored at Wa Grizz, and I've got 5.5. Might be too high. I'm going to stick with 5.5 though. They've been picking up steam. Their defense has been clamping down.
Yeah, we saw that last week, like you said, against Paulie. They weren't able, that offense wasn't really able to do much, and that's really what Paulie has is an offense. So when the offense slowed down, the Grizz rolled. Patty, how do you see this one? Like Parlay said, Grizz at home against a solid opponent. We've already talked about history. Grizz probably favored just because of track record. Davis still maybe kind of a relative unknown brand for Vegas. They probably don't trust him a ton. What do you think?
Right. So Davis being a top 5 team right now, you got to think that has some pull for Vegas. When I first look at this game, I'm thinking if this is on a neutral field, I think Davis is favored by a little bit, maybe a Davis pick 'em or Davis by like 2.5. But I think the Wa Grizz factor is real, and I think that's like a 6-point swing almost for some weeks it feels like. So I've got Montana minus 2.5. I think it'll be really close to a pick 'em type game, just because Davis has definitely looked like the more complete team, but Montana has. They've got the better money going in their favor. They're a nationally known brand in Wa Grizz. So I think those factors swing it to the Montana side just slightly. Montana minus 2.5.
Yeah, right now I think Miles Hastings leading the conference in yards per game. Might also lead in total yardage, but having a nice season. So that wraps up the Big Sky slate for this weekend. So we're going to take a look further afield, a little slice of the valley. SIU is going to be taking the trip to Brookings to face the Jacks. Parlay, how do you see this one? SIU has underperformed, I would say, this year.
I'm looking at the schedule here. I saw something different. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing. I've got South Dakota State at North Dakota.
Oh, really? do something wrong here. Let me just double check.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
November
believe
9th.
South Dakota State is at North Dakota this week.
I must have looked ahead a week, a wrong week. But this is an
Yeah, in
interesting
Missouri,
game.
in NDSU has a bye, so I was like, wow.
That's right. We're going off the fly.
Yep.
Yeah, so we got to redo these. So the only one worth picking in the Valley is the North Dakota hosting South Dakota State. Okay, the rest of them are blah. All right, so I got to think a second here. Now North Dakota just lost to Indiana State. They're terrible.
State. On the road, they're terrible.
But it was on the road, and so they were looking ahead to South Dakota State, and they weren't in their little dome where they do so well. But South Dakota State's offense has not impressed me at all. Like, made me kind of feel good as cautiously optimistic about how the Bobcats will do against them. We'll see. SDSU at UND. I'm going to say SDSU is favored by 6.5. Yeah. That's what I'm going with.
Okay. Patty, what about you? UND has normally played very well at home. They're coming off of a bad loss to the Sycamores last weekend on the road. But like Parlay said, now they're back in their dome in Grand Forks. But they are facing a South Dakota State team that, while maybe not the team that we've seen in past years, is still very potent.
Right. This is a kind of a tough one to pick just because North Dakota has the O'Lara Center effect. Similar to Montana has Walker is, but not in the same way. Like, North Dakota, for whatever reason, just plays out of their mind at that dome. Like, I don't know what it is. They just play really good there. It's not like it's a crazy environment or anything. It's just they just really play good there. It's kind of like Roos Field. Anyways, I've got South Dakota State minus 9.5, I think, is where I'm going to put it. I still think South Dakota State holds some pretty major weight in Vegas in general. I mean, their only loss on the year is to North Dakota State, who's number 1, right? And last year, if I'm remembering right, South Dakota State put a massive whooping on UND. I think the game could be a little friskier than that, but I'm going to stick with South Dakota State 9.5.
Yeah, like you said last year, UND looking like maybe they were going to be something. They take the trip to Brookings and just get crushed. Like that was over after that weekend. Like, nope. But it was a road game, so like we
road game and a totally different South Dakota State team. They were an all-time great FCS team last year. They're top 5 in the nation this year, probably top 3, but last year they were one of the top 4 teams that's played in the FCS. So, a little different.
Yep. All right, guys, I had to throw something else in there that I thought might be interesting, and so what caught my eye was this. Western Carolina taking the trip to Johnson City to face ETSU. ETSU coming off of a painful loss against Mercer. They led early. It looked like ETSU was going to blow Mercer out, but then some key turnovers got Mercer back in the game. End up losing. ETSU loses. Some controversy there. Coach Lamb was posting a lot about it, about a certain offside call. But Western Carolina also coming off of a loss that kind of maybe hurt their chances as well. And so they're going to be hungry. Once again, a very potent offense. ETSU, they've shown that they can do some stuff, but I'm hearing that Darius Rucker is going to be at the stadium to sing Wagon Wheel. I don't know if that has an effect. Parlay, what do you think?
Yeah, I went too high here. ETSU, gosh, they should have beat North Dakota State. They should have beat Mercer. Like, they could be sitting with great position for, a top 4 seed in the playoff bracket. But no, now they're fighting for their lives just to make the damn playoffs. I put 6.5. I don't like it. there's no way it's more than I. You know what? I'm going to cheat here. It's my damn podcast. I'm saying it's 3.5. I'm
Okay.
going one under. I think he might have. Patty might have put. He might have prices righted me on a couple. I don't know. I can't tell. But so I'm going to do it here. I'm going to say 3. Now watch, it's going to be 5.5 or 6.5, and I'm going to regret it. But I'm saying ETSU minus 3.5.
Okay. Patty, what about you?
Right. So
Oh wait, he's got Western. I just noticed
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So I picked Western Carolina to be favored in this game, and I know it's kind of weird
Yeah.
with the road team. They have the same record, but now I'm thinking, I think Western Carolina's quarterback might be out because Cole Gonzalez he
got
was
Oh, you
out.
mean
He
Eastern?
was out last week, right? I think he was out last week, and so now I'm rethinking everything.
Yeah, if that's the case, I mean that's a huge blow to that Western Carolina offense because Cole Gonzalez can slang
That's
it, man.
Yeah. So am I allowed to make an audible? I'll just stick with it. I'll just take it on the chin. Western Carolina minus 4.5. I totally forgot Cole Gonzalez left that game last week, or I don't know if he left the game restarted with injury. I can't remember, but uh, they 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 stuck out a really tough game against Chattanooga where both quarterbacks were out.
Yeah.
And now I can't believe I totally forgot that happened. So that is a softball for parlay there. I'm pretty sure ETSU is going to be favored now, but if Gonzalez is back, I think Western Carolina will get the nod in terms of favoring. But I'll stick with it since I already wrote it down. Western Carolina 4.5 minus 4.5.
Okay. We got a little bit of extra time here, so couple of lines we got in the chat here. What about this? Lamar going to go to the Southland. Lamar at Incarnate Word. What do you think of this one? Incarnate Word doing what they should, taking care of biz in the Southland. Very much looks like it's theirs to lose. Lamar has been plucky, not great, but they've got some wins. I don't know, Parlay. What do you think of this one?
Is Incarnate Wood, are they going to be the winners in the Southland? Is that what it's looking like?
I think so.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Yeah, they're
Nichols
4-0.
not good this year.
There's
I mean,
South, let's see, SLU,
making a run at it.
Southeast Louisiana, they're 4-1, but was their loss to Incarnate Wood? I believe
Yep,
it was.
it was to a
Yeah, so Incarnate Word has to lose 2 games in the conference to not make the playoffs. I don't think this one will be one of those. Shoot, I have no idea. I'm guessing here. I'm going to say Incarnate Word minus 11.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right about the same number there. Incarnate Word will obviously be favored. I think it'll be more than 10 points. I'm stuck between the 14-ish point and the 17-ish point range. I'll go 16.5 just to make the spread between me and Parlay's picks a little wider, but I really think it could be right around that 14-point spread range. Lamar has been a team that has competed. Like, I believe they played I think they played Davis earlier this year and competed pretty dang well. Was it Lamar? Lamar played some Big Sky team and competed pretty dang well.
It was us. They beat us.
They
Oh,
beat
that's
Weaver.
right. That's right. That is right. So they beat Weber. Now that hasn't aged as well for Lamar, but yeah, I'll go Incarnate Word minus 16.5.
Yeah, they win by a point because our kicker couldn't kick that day, I guess.
That's right.
So they win by 1. It was like 17-16 or some dumb score like that. So they survived. But you're right. Lamar has maybe not looked as good. They've lost to Stephen F. Austin. They just have had some losses in conference that maybe don't look as good. So right now, Patty's saying minus 16.5. Parlay, yours was
11.5.
minus 11.5. All right. Well, fellas, that takes us over 30 minutes. Appreciate you. Any final thoughts before we wrap up this week?
No, I just that the game of the Big Sky so far, because MSU Idaho turned out to be a nothing burger,
Yeah.
is Saturday night in Missoula, because the Grizz, it was fun making fun of them while I could, but I also was saying with full, hey, they're going to get it together by Cat Grizz. They just will. And Saturday night, we find out if that's true. We find out if Davis is for real. It's tough coming into Montana for a night game, right? It's really hard. So we get to find out, is Davis for real, or is Montana back to being a contender again? It should be a great game, and it's awesome that it's on ESPN2. It's going to be funny to see those Missoula guys deal with the ESPN2 timeouts at 10:30, 11 o'clock when they're nice and pickled, So have fun out there, Grizz guys.
Yep. Patty, any final thoughts from you, man?
Yeah, no, that Davis at Montana game should be a really good game. I think, both teams have some like obvious flaws on the film. Both teams have some really obvious strengths. It's probably going to be a pretty high scoring game, I would think. Now that I say that, it's probably going to be an absolute slugfest, but both teams have some pretty star-studded offenses with really good skill guys, and it should be a fun game. I think the game comes down to the quarterbacks. Which quarterback is consistent throughout the night and makes less mistakes. Yeah, it should be a really fun game, and I think it's a big game for the landscape of the Big Sky of like how many teams are going to get into the playoffs, or not necessarily how many teams are going to get into the playoffs, more of like what order the four teams will be in. Because right now, obviously, you have Montana State, Idaho, Davis, and Montana. So, I think this is one of those games that helps us mostly sort out the order of Davis, Idaho, and Montana.
Yeah, Landon Larson right now leading the conference in scoring, 10 touchdowns this season for him. But in addition, if Montana chooses to play the man defense that we saw against Weber State, Miles Hastings might pick them apart. So we'll see if Bobby makes adjustments, and if he does, could be a rough night for Hastings. Otherwise, he's a pretty accurate passer. He can dink and dunk you to death, and if they're not willing to make adjustments, that could be a bad thing for the Grizz. But there's a lot going on, and I think that if Davis wins this game, it makes the game against the Bobcats that much bigger, right? That makes that game absolutely massive. But if Davis should lose this game, then all eyes turn toward Cat Grizz.
And it might
All right,
dip
fellas.
below 40 at kickoff, so.
Oof, it's going to be cold. It is going to be cold and late. All right, guys, appreciate you for chatting some Big Sky football. We'll look forward to this weekend's games, and we'll wrap it up. Bet the best, forget the rest. Go Big Sky.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys.